Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and after the Bitcoin price came down to my technical price target at around 25,000, we are now seeing over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin enter into Bitcoin long positions over on the Bitfinex exchange. So I'll be talking about all of this and so much more later in the video. Definitely stick around. First of all, starting off on the daily Bitcoin chart, and obviously over the past one day, we've seen a break below this range of support, which was sitting at around $29,000 to $30,000 per Bitcoin. And obviously that range of support stems from the lows that the Bitcoin price formed during the middle of last year. And if you actually zoom into this break to the downside, you can see that yesterday's daily candle closed just underneath 29,000. In fact, we closed at around 28.9K approximately. And obviously what I've been saying in pretty much every one of my recent Bitcoin update videos is if the Bitcoin price confirms a break below this $29,000 to $30,000 level of support with something like a daily candle close below 29,000, then I would be expecting a drop down towards around 25,000. And once again, we obviously got that daily candle close below support just yesterday, and then pretty much immediately got that drop down towards around 25,000 as expected. But considering how volatile this Bitcoin move was, we actually saw different Bitcoin prices across different exchanges, and especially with Bitcoin paired against different stablecoins. So for example, over on Binance, we actually saw the Bitcoin price drop as low as around 24,000. Before then, we saw a bounce in the Bitcoin price at around 24,000. But then on some other crypto exchanges, and especially if you pair Bitcoin against USDT, as in Tether USD, then the Bitcoin price didn't even make it past 26,000. Because during this volatile event, we actually saw Tether USD, as in USDT, see a slight fluctuation in its $1 peg down towards around 95 cents, and then it began to recover back towards $1. And so because of that, if you have a Bitcoin to USDT pair on an exchange, the Bitcoin price looks like it only went down towards around 26,000, even though it actually went down towards around 25,000, and on some exchanges like Binance, even down towards 24,000. But either way, we got the bearish scenario that I've been talking about. And so now that this has played out, does that mean the Bitcoin price has bottomed out and we could be just going up from here? Well, technically it is a possibility, but I wouldn't be so sure until we start to see a bit more of a bottom forming in the stock market, which we haven't seen just yet. And I'll be talking more about that later in the video. But for now, we know that we have a lot of support around that $25,000 region right at this price target. And of course, that is right in the middle of this massive accumulation range, which is built between these two moving averages, coming in between around 28,000 and 22,000. And by the way, if you're new to the channel, these two moving averages are the 1,000-day simple moving average, which is the green line, and the 200-week simple moving average. And when you're zooming out on the weekly Bitcoin chart, you really get to see why these moving averages are so important for Bitcoin, because basically time and time again throughout many years worth of Bitcoin's history, during the most bearish times in the market, we normally see the Bitcoin price come in between these two moving averages, and that gives us an amazing buying opportunity, especially if you're holding for the longer term. Now, keep in mind, we have seen a few wicks below the 200-week simple moving average, so keep that in mind. It's not impossible for the Bitcoin price to actually go below the 200-week MA, but generally speaking, if you dollar cost average into Bitcoin below the 1,000-day simple moving average, so once again, that is the green line, then historically speaking, you would have done very well, and even better if you bought along the 200-week simple moving average, which is the red line once again, and that normally marks the bottom or around the bottom for the Bitcoin price during these most bearish time periods throughout Bitcoin's entire history. And what is also very interesting about this weekly Bitcoin chart is 2 of these 3 times where the Bitcoin price has entered into this accumulation price range set up by these moving averages in the past, we have also seen the weekly Bitcoin RSI enter into oversold territories 2 out of those 3 previous times once again. So if we see a signal like that, that could give us some more confidence that Bitcoin is potentially at a bottom, because once again, that has happened just 2 other times and so far has a 100% accuracy. But of course, there has been other times where the Bitcoin price has bottomed out, even though the weekly Bitcoin RSI didn't actually make it into oversold territories, but we might have gotten close, like what we're at right now at the time of recording this video. So basically, what I'm saying based on the Bitcoin chart itself is that 25K at the very least should be some sort of local low, as in simply based on the massive amount of support in that area, we should find continued support in that area for at least a few days, maybe a few weeks. And as for the actual bottom, that also depends on whether or not the stock market keeps dumping, which once again, I'll be talking more about that later in this video. But once again, just based on the Bitcoin chart itself, we should have now bottomed out at least in the shorter term, once again for the next few days, maybe the next few weeks. And if 25K is not the bottom, then the actual bottom is not too far away. Basically, the worst is most likely behind us. Simply based on all of these Bitcoin indicators, according to Bitcoin's entire price history, the bottom is not very far away if it isn't in already. And what is really interesting is if you're taking a look at the Bitcoin long positions on the Bitfinex exchange, we are seeing a massive explosion in the amount of Bitcoin flowing into Bitcoin long positions. Now, this right here is on the daily chart. So basically, ever since around 1 month ago, we have seen over 40,000, nearly 41,000 Bitcoin enter into new Bitcoin long positions over on Bitfinex. And the majority of these long positions have really joined in the last few days, which once again is very interesting because these are pretty much Bitcoin whales that are contributing to a lot of support that we found at around 25,000. Because this amount of Bitcoin that has entered into Bitcoin long positions over the past 1 month is equivalent to over $1 billion. And even if you're just looking at today and yesterday, basically ever since yesterday, another 19,100 Bitcoin has entered into new Bitcoin long positions, which is equivalent to around $500 million entering into Bitcoin long positions just over today and yesterday on this one exchange. Now, of course, with a huge surge in Bitcoin long positions, this does give the risk of a possible long squeeze, which if that happens could create a massive capitulation to the downside. But considering the fact that these longs did not get squeezed, even with that drop down towards around 25,000, really we'll need to see the Bitcoin price drop well below 25,000 in order to squeeze out these longs if they survived that drop already. And also what is very interesting about all of these Bitcoin long positions on this exchange is the fact that the majority of Bitcoin funding rates across all of these exchanges are basically negative right now. And anytime the funding rates are negative, that means the short positions, so the people that are betting on the Bitcoin price going down, have to pay money, have to pay an extra fee basically to the people longing Bitcoin, the people that are betting on the Bitcoin price going up. So at least as of right now, at the time of recording this video, it is currently more expensive to short Bitcoin than it is to long Bitcoin, simply based off the fees and funding rates alone. So simply by having a lot of funding rates in the negative, this could actually help out a lot of Bitcoin long positions and potentially start to put a bit more pressure on the Bitcoin short positions if we do not roll over again to the downside. And if you're taking a quick look at the 3-day Bitcoin RSI, this is still currently in oversold territories, and honestly, the trend in the 3-day Bitcoin RSI over the past 1.5 years strongly reminds me of 2019 entering into early 2020, and even this recent crash to the downside or capitulation or whatever you want to call it also strongly reminds me of that March 2020 crash where we saw the 3-day Bitcoin RSI enter into oversold territories, very similar to what we're seeing at the moment. Now, of course, there was obviously different things happening in the world at that stage compared to right now, so I'm not saying we're in the exact same situation. I'm just saying that these two situations are quite similar based on the price action and these Bitcoin indicators, and even based on human emotion, the people trying to trade Bitcoin. There's obviously a lot of fear in the market at the moment, a lot of people questioning the future of crypto, similar to March 2020. And for anyone out there that was in the market during March 2020, I'm sure you would understand what I'm talking about. But anyway, giving you a quick update on the US stock market today. This right here is the Nasdaq 100 index on the daily time frame, and so far we have not confirmed a clear bottom in the stock market, which is not exactly a good sign for crypto, at least in the shorter term, because ideally we need to see some sort of bottom form in the stock market before we can be more confident that the Bitcoin price might have bottomed out. But something important to mention is what happened to the stock market during the March 2020 crash. And if you're actually looking at the stock market right here, the stock market bottomed out in that crash on the 23rd of March 2020 is where the Nasdaq began heading back up again. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the Bitcoin price action in that same time period, that March 2020 crash, the Bitcoin price actually bottomed out on the 13th of March. So Bitcoin basically bottomed out around 10 days before the stock market bottomed out. And in fact, if you look at where the Bitcoin price was when the stock market actually bottomed out, that was once again on the 23rd of March, right around here. And at that stage, from where Bitcoin actually bottomed out to where the stock market finally bottomed out, we actually saw a 50 to 60% pump in the Bitcoin price in that time period where we were waiting for the stock market to finally bottom out. Now, once again, I'm not saying the exact same thing's going to play out, but I'm just saying averaging. In the past, the Bitcoin price has bottomed out before the stock market, but ideally we need to wait for a stock market bottom to be more confident that Bitcoin did actually bottom out. And as of right now, looking at the Nasdaq 100 index on the weekly time frame, we have no confirmed bottom just yet, but looking in the weekly RSI for the Nasdaq 100 index, this is currently entering into oversold territories, which is something that we didn't even see happen back in March 2020, and we didn't even see this happen during the 2018 bear market for the Nasdaq 100 index, which is very interesting to keep in mind because it goes to show that right now we do actually have quite an opportunity on our hands, especially if you're a long-term holder, but of course that is not financial advice. I'm just telling you what has historically happened and what is most likely to occur next. So to sum it all up, right now I'm currently dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, and I did end up buying a little bit more Bitcoin on top of my regular dollar cost averaging at around $25,000 per Bitcoin, as I said I would many times recently on the channel. And if we do end up going any lower than 25,000, like for example 22,000, where this 200-week MA is coming into play, then personally I'll simply go even heavier into Bitcoin if we go to lower prices. But in the meantime, I'm simply dollar cost averaging as usual. But as always, it is important to mention that that is not financial advice. Of course, everyone's situation is different. So I'm just letting you know what my personal Bitcoin strategy is, what I'm doing with my own money, and what you do with your money is completely up to you. And if you want to know how to profit in crypto, even when prices are going down, make sure to check out one of these uploads popping up right here on your screen, because in both of these videos, I cover ways that make me more money in crypto no matter what prices are doing. But anyway, that is it for this update. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.